no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Because that's who I've always was. Somebody would say something about me, I would take it personally, and I'd feel like a piece of crap. And now I get it, that it's up to me whether I accept what they're saying.
Step into the world of success with Your Brand Amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success.
I am super excited to have a coach of coaches and entrepreneurs on the show today, Martin Salama. We are on opposite coasts. You're in New York, I'm in LA, but we're here today together on Zoom. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for being here. And thanks to the wonderful technology of the world, we could be in the same room without even being in the same room.
I'm really interested because you have a background in business, you majored in economics, you've been a radio host, but I noticed there was a shift in your work to primarily focusing on coaching. So I want to learn more about you and how you came to discover that that was kind of your Venn diagram spot.
Wow. I love the way you put that. That's fantastic. Yeah. So, I mean, for most of my life until my mid-40s, I was a businessman. Back then, we didn't use terms like entrepreneurs. I was a businessman. I had businesses. I was in businesses. I was out of businesses and stuff like that. And then in the early 2000s, my wife came to me. I had just closed a business and she said, you're probably looking for something to do, which I really wasn't at that moment. But, we had residual income coming in and stuff like that. And she said, I started playing tennis, but I can never find anywhere to play. There's not enough courts. So I'm like, all right, well, what should we do? She said, well, maybe we could look and see if there's a need for more tennis courts. So we went down this rabbit hole for 5 years. I know. We found out, yes, there's a need we did a feasibility study. There is a need for tennis courts. And the guy said to us, the guy who did the feasibility study, don't think you're going to be that profitable just having a tennis courts. If you built it up and had a health club and all the other amenities that come with that, then you're talking. I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. So we started doing that. We found the land. We went into finding an architect and engineer and everything that comes with it. And it took us 5 years to go through this.
Wow.
And get all this done. And most of that time was because the city was like, okay, you need to do this, you need to get this. And then they came to us and said, okay, now you have to do get a civil engineer to make sure that the parking is right and the traffic isn't affected, so on and so forth. We're like, all right, By that time, we had grown to be over 100,000 square feet, and the project was going to be a $15 million project. And we'd put in about $3.5 million of our money, investors' money, loans, and all that. And it was, don't remember, this was the early 2000s, about 2004, 5, 6, 7. We're going into the bank and asking for money was like going to Costco and asking for samples from the old ladies on the end. Remember those days? Yeah, we'll lend you money. Why not? And I'd go in, I'd refinance my house a couple of times. And, when the bank was like, yeah, we can't wait for this project, But in the meantime, we're getting ready. We're like, okay, as soon as we get approval, we're going to go into the ground. And we finally get the approval in the summer of 2008.
I knew you were going to say that.
And we go to the bank and they're like, yeah, we're not lending right now. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've just spent the last 5 years and you kept on saying we're excited for you. Well, things are changing. Well, I don't care. A month later, Bernie Madoff, the subprime loans, the financial world falls apart like a house of cards, as you know, right? And where am I? I'm the joker on the bottom of the deck. And I ain't laughing because just like that, I was wiped out. And I stopped paying my mortgage, stopped paying my car payments. About 2-3 months later, my son says, Dad, look outside. My car was being towed away. And there went my BMW. And that never happened to me before. I guess I could say, luckily, I lived in New Jersey and there were so many foreclosures that even though they foreclosed on the house, it took them years until they finally moved on the foreclosure. But that wasn't so great. And I went into a depression for about a year.
Yeah.
And, looking back now, obviously it was a situational depression because of everything that was going on. I went on medication, which I realized later I didn't really need. But, at the moment I did. At the moment, they all thought I did. My therapist, my coach, my whatever. They all said, yeah, you need to get yourself straight. And I did that. And about a year later, I said, okay, great. I'm ready to move forward. What do I want to do? I never loved being that businessman. I just never loved it. It didn't drive me. So it's like, well, what has driven me over the years? You're talking about the Venn diagram of what's that center thing. And for me, I was always involved in community events. I was always a leader. Brilliant. And people would come in and I'd say, we need your help. And they go, I can't do what you're doing. I'm like, but I don't need you to do what I'm doing. I want to know what you're good at. And I would sit with them and I would talk with them and I would get out what their potential is. And I realized I was coaching them. So I was like, oh, that's a good idea. I'll become a life coach. So I started researching it. I found a great school, went in there and told the guy, listen, I can't afford to pay you and I can't afford to go to the bank and get a loan, get it financed. But if we can come up with a number, I'll figure out how every month I pay you. And he said, okay, we came up with a number. He says, but there's one thing. You can't get your certification until you finish paying off. I said, that's fair. Makes sense. So we're ready to do this. Then it's about 2 months before the course is going to start. It's my 24th wedding anniversary. And my wife says to me, I want a divorce. You saw it coming, did you?
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
I'm like, looking back, I should have said I didn't get you anything like that. But and I was devastated. It would knock me down. I'm like, why does everything keep happening to me? And looking back now, I realized that statement really was me saying, this is, me rationalizing that it's everybody else's fault and not mine.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to get there. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to still go through with life coach training. And it was the best decision I ever made. And that first weekend, they said to me, you don't have to be who you think you have to be. You could be whoever you want to be.
Really?
And that went against everything I always knew my whole life. And I started to realize that I was always a people pleaser. And I never knew that. People pleasers don't admit, oh, I'm a people pleaser. They just say, oh, I like to make everybody happy. And that was my MO. And along with that, I started to unpack other things. That I took everything personally. That I was a control freak. That I needed the recognition for all the things I was doing for everybody else. And when all those things weren't happening, I had a very short temper. And I would react to everything. And this was like cathartic for me to recognize that those things were holding me back. And I decided I needed to change, not to save my marriage because it wasn't savable. And I learned that going through coaching as well, that we were in a codependent relationship and our values were never the same. But looking back now, her asking for the divorce, other than our 4 children, was the best gift she ever gave me. And I thank her to this day because she went on with her life. She got married again. I went on with my life. I got married again. And we both became different people. And, thank God we have a great relationship now. So I finished coach training and I'm like, what kind of coach do I want to be? And I become a divorce recovery coach because that's what I just went through. Play to what you know.
Right.
So I did that for a few years and I helped people get over the emotional pains and the emotional roller coaster of going through a divorce. And as I grew, I realized so was what I was looking to help out there, what I was looking to do. And I was doing things like I was eating good, I was reading the right books, I was feeling great, I was dating. And I was like, I was even doing things that I'm ADHD, like meditating.
Same.
You ever tried meditating with ADHD?
Yeah.
Your brain's all over the place, right, Annika?
Yeah, very much so.
But one of these days, I was doing one of those guided meditations and thinking, when is this going to be over? But I had a download of information that I was loving my life and I wanted to help others as well. So after that meditation, I wrote for 2 hours. And out of that came the acronym LIFE. Live incredibly full every day. And to me, it means being happy and meaningful. Because you could be happy, which is self-love, self-care, even selfish, without having meaning, right? Yeah. Meaning to me is selfless. What are you doing for the world? And you could be meaningful, the meaning of life. I forgot what his name is. I love him. I read his book so many times and all of a sudden his name went out of my head. He talks about that you have to have meaning. That keeps you going. His name will come to me. He's a survivor of the Holocaust. And I said, that's how you can live incredibly full every day. When you're having a happy life and you're doing things meaningful, selfless, giving out, doing others, making other people feel good. So I put together the life program, started doing that. I got married in that time. And I looked back at when I said, why does everything happen to me? And realized that was me blaming everybody else. And now I realize that everything happens through me. You know, people say things happen for me. I think that's a little selfish. Things happen through me. It's up to me. It's my decision. It's my responsibility for where I go in my life.
Yeah. This is such a beautiful journey. And I really appreciate you being so open and honest. It's funny because I find that the conversations for the podcast tend to go either we're talking about the latest technology and tools and those constructs and a little bit of personal stuff, or we're having these really deep conversations about those transformation points, because we all have those inflection points where we wake up and we're like, this is not my life, right? It's like the Talking Heads song. And where a lot of people go through these corporate careers or they're businessmen or entrepreneurs, and then they realize, wow, this is not where I'm supposed to be. It's not going to fulfill the meaning, the purpose why I'm here. Right. And it's only recently that I've discovered the right coaches and why we all need different kinds of coaches.
Yeah.
And I was telling you that I'm going through the Zen activation program, and it's all about self-mastery, right? So it's all about tools for you to realize the things that you've realized, where you're being more assertive, more confident, where yes, you want to help people and give back, but you also want to be able to say no and not be such a people pleaser.
Exactly.
And that it's one of the most beautiful journeys I've been on. And it just gives you so much more to work with in your own personhood and your own, sense of being.
Right. You know, it took me a long time to recognize that the word no is a full sentence.
Yes. Yeah, it really is.
You don't have to give it explanation as to why you're saying no.
And we like to over-explain sometimes, and especially with ADHD. Right? Exactly. Somebody asks a question.
And people pleasing.
What airline are you taking? Oh, I'm taking this airline because XYZ. Just thinking about recent conversations, the person had me ask again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's.
Oh my God,
it's
you
funny.
just brought back a memory. When I was going through my divorce, we actually went to court. And my lawyer said to me, just answer the question.
Oh.
Don't give me more than I ask.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And how beautiful that you now have a very full life.
Yeah.
You know exactly who you are, what you want to be, what you want to give back. You're in a great relationship, and you're able to maintain a relationship with your ex and have that realization that it's not about forever if it's not the right fit. And sometimes you don't know it's not the right fit if you're in it.
Yeah,
and
at the time, I was like, I always thought this was going to be forever. I really did. And, we got married young, and I was like, oh, this is what I want, and I'm going to always. But looking back now, realizing that what I thought I wanted was so different than who I really was. And me even admitting it to myself right here now and recognizing, you know what, it just wasn't right. Doesn't mean we didn't have good years. We had many good years. Yeah. And I have 4 children to show and 8 grandchildren. And it's wonderful. And we can get together. We can, get along. But at the time, I thought it was forever only because we both grew in different directions. And admitting that is okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you came up with life. You have a book, Worrier to Worrier, and you have a card deck, and you have your coaching.
Right.
So talk about coming up with the construct of life and then moving into this needs to be a book and
right, and a course and everything. Yeah. Right. So it happened to come along in a crazy time, right? So here we are. We're going through. I'm coaching people with this not specific structure. I understood what I was doing, but I wasn't giving them in a structural way. I was going in an order in my head, but I wasn't like opening the door to them and saying, "This is what we're doing now. This is what." As we would get there, I'd say, "Okay, this is what happens next." But then something crazy happened in 2020. Remember what happened in 2020?
Don't we all?
Right. So here I am, and the world shuts down. And they go, it's only going to be 2-3 weeks. Now, my ADHD kept me from staying in the house. Every day I figured a way out. I'd wear the mask. I'd even put the gloves on. Remember? In the beginning, they like, wear gloves.
Yeah, spray everything down before it comes in the house. Oh, yeah.
Right, exactly. And I would go out every day and find a way to go shopping, do whatever. So now they said it would get 2-3 weeks. This was March. Yes. And now it's May, and we're still locked down. And I turned to my wife and I said, let's take the kids, her kids, and let's go to New York City. We live in Brooklyn. So let's go to Manhattan. Now, if you've ever been to New York, you know what it's like driving on the streets around there.
Yeah.
It's chaos at all times. So imagine driving straight down Fifth Avenue without missing a traffic light. That's how crazy it was. I'm like, where is everybody?
Yeah.
And I turned to my wife and said, what is everybody so worried about? Put your mask on, put your gloves on, stay 6 feet apart. Central Park was empty. Why? And we were so funny because we're driving down Fifth Avenue right by Museum Mile. The kids are getting out of the car, taking pictures. We're stopping like it was empty. It was crazy. So I turned to her, I go, what is everybody so worried about? And then I realized the last 10, 12 years I had gone through the divorce, the losing all the money, a weight craziness with my weight gain and weight loss and all that. And I realized that it was preparing me for anything because now I'm not worried anymore. I'm not sitting and worrying about these things. So I jumped onto Facebook and I said, guys, I get it. And I want to show you how to go from being a worrier to a warrior. And I started to coach people around the things that were going on. And like one of my first clients when I put this out there was a woman who had a perfect job. And then she lost it because of COVID. She's like, what am I going to do now? So the warrior to warrior concept is helping people go from lack to abundance. Change that mindset of I can't to how can I or I can. And going down that road, it's going from self-conscious to self-aware. And most people say, oh, I'm self-aware. I'm like, no, you're aware. Now let's see if you're self-aware. And I go through and I explain to them what the difference is. And they're like, I guess I'm really self-conscious. I'm like, okay, good. Now let's work with that. And so I started to memorialize the things that I was doing. And I put it into a course in a book. And I made the card deck as a way of people to just like have it tangible for them to pull out a card every once in a while and work on whatever it is that's, coming up for them.
Right.
So as I was doing this, I realized I went through so many different coaching programs myself where they were like, this will be done for you, done with you. And Annika, I found out most of them were done to you programs.
Oh.
Right? You'd get in and you'd pay all this money and I'd come to the calls and I'd do the work, but there was always something missing. They were not giving me everything I needed. Now, was it my fault? Was it their fault? I don't know. But I said, you know what? I want to change that narrative. I want to change the way it is because, there's no recourse. You've given the money and that's it. You didn't do it. Well, that's on you. Well, if it's on me, okay, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but there was no end around for it. So I said, you know what? Let me put together a program where I'm not just teaching information, coaching on information, but I'm also coaching on results.
Yeah.
So I came up with this thing I call a risk reversal strategy. Where the risk is on me just as much as it's on my client. And I tell them, okay, I'm going to get you to 7 figures within 2 years guaranteed. Here's how the guarantee works. You give me 12.5% of what it costs to be in my program. The investment is 12.5%. And then you don't pay me again until you're making money.
Wow.
And that money is tied in. When you get to X amount, now you're making 2 times your return on investment. Then you pay me again when you hit 5 times ROI and then 10 times. By then you're at $1 million.
Nice.
And I put it in a way where there's one-on-one coaching in a group setting 3 times a month, right? Why only 3 times? Because the 4th week, I want to teach people that eventually I want you to be able to have your business work with or without you. So I'm teaching you, number 1, the systems. Number 2 is the mindset. Because as good as my program is, as good as I am, if you don't believe in yourself, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
So we work on mindset. And then the last one, which is what gets you to beyond 7 figures, is are you scalable? If you're doing everything yourself, you're never scalable.
Right.
You can never walk away. And there's a great book by a fantastic coach called Who Not How.
Dan
You know this book?
Yep. Yeah.
Such a fantastic book.
Yeah.
He basically says, stop waking up every morning and saying, how am I going to do this? How am I going to build my CRM or my funnel or my sales page or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
That's not your zone of genius.
Right.
My zone of genius is being on a coaching call, helping people move forward. What you should be doing is, who should I get to do this for me? And, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, he says, I want to be the dumbest guy in my business.
Yeah.
Right? And I say, the people that know how work with and for the people that know why.
Yeah.
That's not minimizing what they do.
No.
They're great at what they do, and they have their own whys.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Nice. And how has life changed for you since you've written this book, put out the deck, doing the coaching, all of this?
It's taken a lot of pressure off of me to need to deliver, right? Because every day I wake up with, okay, I get to do this today instead of I've got to do this today, right? That one little word change, just like the one little letter change in Worrier to Worrier, even there's other letters, but you get it, is that it lets me open up the day. I wake up and I pray and I write down 3 things I'm grateful for every single day. And then I go, today I'm going to live incredibly full every day. And I go out there, it's my mantra. There's people who got mantras. A few years ago, Tom Brady, have you heard of that guy?
Oh, yeah.
7 Super Bowl wins. He says his mantra is the 4 agreements. Every day he wakes up and he says the 4 agreements. And for me, don't take anything personally, change my life. Thank you, Don Miguel Ruiz. So everybody got a way to get them going. Well, that's how I do it.
Yeah. And are you still doing divorce coaching as well?
Not as much.
Yeah.
I'll get a call here or there, but I have another book. It's called Recovering from Divorce that they can get on Amazon. But, it's part of who I am. And I understand the things that the people are going through when they're getting divorced. So I'll get a call every once in a while and I'll spend a couple of sessions with them. And then I'll say, look, this is where you are on the journey. When you're ready to do more, let me know. I'm here for you. In the beginning, there's so much raw emotions, right? So it's about helping them get off the proverbial ledge.
Yeah.
So they don't jump off emotionally. Thank God, not physically.
Right.
But they just feel like they want to give up.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you asked for the divorce or were asked for it.
Right.
It's an emotional pain. And men don't like to admit it. But after talking to me, they usually do.
Well, if you're figuring out when you don't have your child who you are, you have to live with yourself. Like, you have to be able to think and work through those emotions. You might not have the trappings or the wealth that you had previously or whatever the situation might be. So you have to also realize that you're the same person with or without those things. Other people might judge you differently,
right?
But that's not on you.
Not on you.
There's we can have a whole conversation just about that.
Yeah. That's we all have it. We're all like, we're trying to make everybody else happy. We're being judged, and why are we being judged, and how do we not get judged? All that.
I'd love to hear some of your case studies of people who've gone through your program. And your program is for coaches and consultants primarily?
Yeah. Mostly for them.
Yeah. And has anyone reached that 7 figures?
Not yet.
Months. No. Okay. So it's
not yet. It's only about 6-7 months that they're in the program.
Okay.
But some of them are starting their own programs now. Right. And I have to say, I've learned a lot over the first bunch of months. In the beginning, what was taking me 2 to 3 months to get them to the point where they had the structure that they needed, the blueprint, and all those things, it was taking 2 to 3 months to pull it out of them. Right? And a lot of that had to do with the fact that it was the one-on-one conversations or in the group sessions. And then my partner and I, her name is Heather, who started out as somebody I hired to help me figure out my marketing and stuff.
Yeah.
And we got close enough that she became my fractional COO and close enough business-wise. Nice. And now she's a partner in my business.
Nice.
We created in ChatGPT specific programs. And now within an hour, I can have people's elevator speech, what they get up and say that makes sense, what their outcomes are, right? Who their right fit client is. That's really what we start with. And then at the end, what's their blueprint? What does their business look like?
Yeah.
What are the actionable steps that they can take to go from A to B to C and on? And within an hour, I have that. And then we say, okay, great. Now, before you spend another dollar, when you get into my course, I put together a 4-hour workshop that people can come, and it's 4 hours because I want them to see everything.
Yeah.
It's no like, let me hide stuff behind the curtain. I pull the curtain back, right? So I do for them their 4-hour workshop. And I also give them the CRM built into the program so that they have that. So they're using the same CRM. I can give them the snapshots, as they're called in this Go High Level program, and just change what's in there to make it for them. We've built out a lot of the stuff already. So why should they have to go and build out stuff that is going to look almost exactly like mine, except personalized for them?
Yeah.
So we give them that, and we have support for it and all that. So before they go any further, we say, now go out and validate your program.
Yeah.
Right? What does that mean? Reach out to the people who are your right fit client and say, I don't want to sell you. I want to put together an article that's really a research article on what I'm putting together. And I'll put that article out. You'll put that article out on LinkedIn or something. And then reach out to them and say, can I pick your brain? And then go over your program with them and ask them some questions. And 3 of the questions are keyed so that if they say yes to those answers, 2 or 3 of those answers, you're validating your program. Now you go out there, you get a certain amount of them, you go, okay.
There.
And you can say at the end of it, this is not a sales call, because it's not. But if you want to know more, are you willing to find out more? And let's have a call to go deeper. They say yes, great. If they say no, that's okay too. Yeah.
What if somebody has a program they've already developed, but they haven't figured out, or taken the time, or they don't think they have the time to actually start working on the outreach, the marketing?
Right. So one of my first clients, and I'm going to read something that she wrote in a minute. She got an email from me and she said, I almost deleted this, but there was something that told me to answer it. I was like, okay, great. And that's what we teach them along the way. It's called a power offer. All right. It's power offer email, so on and so forth. And she said, are you going to change my program? And I said to her, I can't answer that question until I understand what your program is. She goes, because I've been in so many other programs where they wanted to just change who I was.
Yeah.
So as we started to get into it, I realized I didn't need to change her program. I just needed to show her how to take what I'm doing with my program, adapt it into hers. And she says, I've spent thousands of dollars on coaching, but no one could take my unique program and make it work until I had a conversation with Martin. His program has helped me move past the roadblocks, and now I see the possibilities clearly. I've been thoroughly impressed by the systems and feedback I've received, and it has made a huge difference in how I approach my business. She's unbelievable. And she came to me and she said, I'm a trauma-informed coach. And what I want to do is coach other women to be trauma-informed coaches, specifically in domestic violence.
Wow.
In her program. And I was blown away by that.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, what's your goal? She goes, 50 women in 50 states. I'm like, okay. She knew what it was. Now I said, let's put together and build a roadmap and a blueprint to get you there. And along the way, I said to her, what about the women that come to you who don't want to be coached, but want your services to get through domestic violence?
Right.
Right. She goes, yeah, I'll coach them too. I said, but they don't want the whole package.
Right.
So you could have multiple streams of income. Teach them a high-ticket package that's $10,000 and teach the other ones a high-ticket package that's $25,000. That's you're going to go further. And her message, her elevator speech, talks about making an impact and being profitable, right? Because so many of these people will say, I want to be this kind of trauma coach and not think about the profitability of it. And so we show them, I show her, as she's now showing them, how to use this risk reversal strategy to say, okay, I'm going to coach you on information in the beginning and then on results. So I said, most of the women that are going to come to you and say, oh, I only want the $10,000 package, along the way, they're going to probably turn around to you and say, you know what? I think I want to become a coach as well.
Yeah.
So then you can upsell them to the next program.
Yeah. What about when people have questions or they have roadblocks to pricing structures?
Yeah, that's a great question. So before anybody comes into my program, like I said, I want them to go through my workshop to see what it is. And it's really a full deep dive workshop. At the end of it, you get a great idea of what you can do. And you can take the recording and do it on your own. And if you leave me a LinkedIn recommendation, I'll even give you the slides, you know, right? Because you can go do it. But to do it right and do it faster, you need someone to help you who understands the robot. So if it's a money issue, I hopefully get through that with them and say, look, I'm only asking for 12.5% right now. You don't have to finance the whole thing. You don't have the rest of it will be financed based on your profitability. But if that number of 12.5% is too much, let's have a conversation, see if we can find funding for you, alternative funding. But if at the end of the day, I believe in you enough and you believe in me enough, we'll come up with a payment plan that works.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's about. It's not about the money. Of course, the money's important. But I'm, dedicating myself to you.
Yeah.
In this process. And as you hit your goals, you're going to say, I want to get to the next level. Great. And how are you going to get there? Great. Because you hit the numbers. Great. Let's get you the workshop ready, which then shows you how to do it. And then we show you how to go out and find people who want to come to your programs, come to your workshops. And I build the workshop in a way, it's $27 to come to the workshop.
Wow. Okay.
Right? And the $27 now says you're paying so you can pay attention.
Yeah.
But how about this, Annika? If I take it one more level, the $27 is a donation to the Gift of Life. For me, it's the Gift of Life Foundation.
Oh.
Right? Because I don't care about the $27, right? But I understand the importance of the Gift of Life. I'll tell you a quick story. In 2006, there was a little girl in my community who was diagnosed with leukemia. So they sent the message out, everybody gets swabbed. So over 1,000 people went and got swabbed from this Gift of Life organization. Unfortunately, nobody matched this girl and she passed away.
I know.
In 2018, I'm a month away from getting married. I get a call from the Gift of Life. You're in our database and you match somebody who needs your stem cells. Would you be willing to donate your stem cells? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm getting married. I said, no, don't worry. It's going to take a little bit. 4 or 5 months later, they called me. He's ready. Go to test. For a week, I took these shots. A doctor came to my house, gave me shots every day to increase my stem cells. I went to the hospital and I sat there for 5-6 hours as they drew blood, took out the stem cells, put the blood back in, and shipped it across the country. 2 years later, I get a letter saying, you saved my life. And he says at the end of the letter, he goes, by the way, we were a 10 out of 10 match. He goes, I'm Scandinavian. Annika, do I look Scandinavian to you? I'm North African, Middle Eastern. But God had a plan.
Yeah.
So when I was looking around, I said, I'm going to build this workshop. I want to make it philanthropic. I said, let me give the money to Gift of Life. I didn't pay anything. And the person that got it didn't pay anything. Gift of Life picked up all the expenses.
Amazing.
Right now. So now people, they feel even better about coming.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, we could probably talk for hours. I know we could. But
we connected right away, you and I, Annika.
I want to give a little more for people to go search, and go to the warriorslifecode.com to find out everything they need to know, or at least what they need to know about Martin. Yeah. Do you have a final thought around if people are trying to just get started, beyond get started, what is the one thing that they can do to move ahead, take that first step, start their journey?
Right. That's a great question. So I would say is that it's funny because I never thought of it put that way before. But for me, there's something I do in my course, which is called the cycle of A's. Okay. And it's basically taking the idea of the law of attraction and putting it into work.
Yeah.
So many people say, oh, the law of attraction doesn't work. Well, of course, because there's more to it than just thinking about what you want.
Yeah.
Right. So that's for me, that's the first A. Ask. Ask the universe for what you want.
Yes.
Right. And that could be as easy as coming up with an idea in your head. Oh, I just thought of this. I'm going to do this. This is a great idea. So then comes the next day. Act. Start doing the work to get what you want. Put it down on paper. Make a plan. a blueprint, whatever it is, and start following it along. And then the third A is where I throw everybody off. The third A is for attitude. Have an attitude of I am not emotionally tied to the outcome of what happens. Because that's where the law of attraction will lose you. Because if you are putting out that motion of desperation, the law of attraction will stay away from you.
Yeah.
And if you put out that, okay, here it is, I put it out to the universe,
Yep.
and I'm just going to keep going on it and doing and not be afraid of what might happen, that's when it starts to happen. And when it does start to happen, don't take it as a one-off. That's the magic starting to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk about that more.
But so yeah, and by the way,
I definitely I'm going through that.
Another great way to get in touch with me is connectwithmartin.com.
Oh, that's very easy. Nice.
Yeah, I figured I'd just throw that out there. They can get a download of the Cycle of A's. Okay. They can find out about my workshop, my book, and whatever else.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And my last question is, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, family motto, verse?
That's a great question, and I do. And it's from Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Because that's who I've always was. Somebody would say something about me, I would take it personally, and I'd feel like a piece of crap. And now I get it, that it's up to me whether I accept what they're saying.
Wonderful. I'm very inspired. So thank you for bringing such amazing energy to the show today.
Oh, thank you so much.
And giving us a lot to think about on our own journeys. I know a lot of people listening, entrepreneurs, trying to figure out what their what next is, or midlife professionals who are ready to get out of the corporate grind and start something, but might be a little afraid to take that leap.
Right.
So this is your opportunity now to think about this and do it.
And that's just go to connectwithmartin.com. You'll find out when the next workshop is happening.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martin. And thank you to everybody who's watching or is listening to this episode. I'll be back again tomorrow with another amazing guest to share their story.
Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbandamplified.com.